It's a deep honor and privilege to welcome George Jacobs, an amazing, amazing human being, a great philanthropist, a futurist, and he has a multitude of personalities that he's all bringing together. But fundamentally, he's an amazing man who's out there helping to change the world. And today, we are very privileged to have him here in our office to talk about the way forward. George, welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you.
It's a real pleasure to be here
Thanks
with you.
for having me.
Tell us about your early journey of life and how did you evolve yourself to where you are today?
I was born in the south of India, in Cochin, but grew up in Rajasthan in Northwest, and I went to university there, university. And when I graduated, I focused on museum planning and design. So I had specialized in science museums, history of science, technology, medicine, and started working with a private foundation to set up a science center in Jaipur and a planetarium. So that began my journey and interest in museums, which I've carried forward now for 34 years.
So how many museums have you created, curated, and developed?
So over the years, I've worked on over 108 museums, which is a fairly big number. Not all projects have involved the creation of an entirely new institution. Some are focused on functional planning, some are focused on interpretive planning, on curatorial resources, some are focused on procurement, some are focused on concept development and design, and some are focused on everything from A to Z. So from conceiving an institution to actually establishing an institution. So I've been fortunate to have established 4 institutions in my career. And the last one was working on the Philip J. Currie Dinosaur Museum in Canada.
Dubai has many iconic landmarks, as you know, but every single day as I passed the Museum of the Future, it fascinates me. Every time I see it from a different angle, sometimes during the night, sometimes in the day, and it is a different experience. You've seen it, of course, but you've been inside it and you've looked at it. What are your thoughts about it, and what do we need to do to develop that?
So I think it is timely that this amazing museum has been conceived in a dynamic city like Dubai, a country like Dubai. The building itself is a break from everything that is conventional. It is 5 stories tall. It has an eye or a void or a negative space in the middle, which positions us with this sense of the unknown, what is invisible. So you see the physical manifestation of this eye-shaped building, cocooned with calligraphy and with calligraphic statements that are inspirational, that are poetic, that are observational, that are reflective. And then you see this void, which gives you a sense of the unknown and gives you a sense of how our quest to explore the unexplored should continue.
What an amazing manifestation of thought. I sort of saw it more like a vortex and that circle, and you can basically almost like a time machine. In the early days we used to see it, and I can just about visualize things happening inside it. But what an amazing idea and reflection. And I believe everybody will have their own visions of that, and that is really part of what a place like that emanates from you.
Correct. I think what is invisible is far more powerful than what is visible and what one can create. Yeah. And I think the museum addresses that in so many different metaphoric ways.
You talk about the ocean, and I was fascinated when I first met you, where you said, healthy oceans, healthy humanity. Could you explain that a wee bit more for us normal people to understand?
So the oceans, are the lungs of humanity in a nutshell. And as my great hero, Dr. Sylvia Earle, always mentions, that if there is no blue, there's no green. So the oceans nurture this planet, and they occupy 70% of this planet. And we have, either through ignorance or through greed or because of other reasons, we have always treated it with great neglect. We have polluted it. We have pillaged and plundered its resources. And we have created a carbon waste or a plastic waste or a PCB waste or a microplastic waste to a proportion that is so enormous that now we are struggling to see how we can clean 30% of it by 2030. So 30 by 30, 2030 is the SDG's new goal. But that is such a small goal. Even if it is achieved, the tide of pollution will try to drown it the very next minute. So this constant appreciation for our heritage in terms of our natural resources is the key to our conscience. And if we allow that conscience to be polluted in so many different ways, then there is very little hope for us as a species.
Indeed, and that's a lovely segue into this amazing book, which is actually called Voices for a Better Future. SOS Planet Earth. You very kindly presented this book to me, George. You are part of this, and it's an amazing array of international movie stars, philanthropists, business people, politicians, all sorts of people in there. What's the story behind that, and what can we do to give these voices more energy?
Indeed, this is a very wonderful, set of voices that talk about saving the planet and what each of these individuals is actually doing in terms of his or her role in making that happen in their small way. And the book also begins with the story of the hummingbird, which Wangari Maathai famously used to narrate about the ability of a tiny hummingbird to quell a forest fire. So, it has a number of hummingbirds in the narrative, and I was happy to be included in that mix. It has names such as Barack and Michelle Obama, among others, who've all dedicated some time and effort in their lives to focus on climate change, to focus on conservation, to focus on issues that can save our planet, either with money or through programs and so on.
So the synthesis of our future is exactly what George is talking about. George, this is one of yours. Share what this is and explain how this whole thing comes together.
This is it's sort of a symbolic graphic that focuses on what we're planning in San Francisco. And the project is called Bay Equatorium. It is an organic form that focuses on a living aquarium at its core, and it has immersive and engaging exhibits on climate change on the periphery. There is a secondary bubble that is attached to it, which focuses on ocean-based living programs, including Deep Ocean Exploration Launch and Learn Center. And then there is a third bubble, which is an artificial intelligence bubble, that provides this virtual connectivity between sister cities across the world that San Francisco currently has agreements with.
We've been talking about the future, so why don't we put ourselves in a space capsule, in a time machine, and take us deep into the future. And let's say we are celebrating your 100th birthday. What has George achieved, and what is happening around George in 50 years' time?
Well, if I'm still alive, I'm probably half bionic, and maybe I have a chip ingrained in my head. But the possibilities of exponential change, you mentioned about 10x, has been occurring in pretty much every discipline that we can think of. There was a time when it took several rooms for an IBM 1130 mainframe to accommodate its hardware. And now a simple cell phone in your hands has more computing power. So that's an exponential shift. The ability and the speed with which information is coming to our fingertips has undergone a phenomenal shift. And with every decade, you would see breakthroughs that are nothing short of mind-boggling. So in 100 years, I think we would see many, many changes in mobility, in connectivity, in transportation, in machine learning, in the ability of intuitive systems to integrate. The possibilities are endless.
We've been talking about a lot of doom and gloom and a lot of difficulties and challenges and so on. As we get towards the end of this conversation, I'd love to chat to you about the wonderful things that you see in front of you. What are the happy things that we have in front of us? You have these stunningly beautiful museums that you create, the amazing experiences that you build for young people and old people to be able to see, to understand our history, our life, our science, our technology. What are the happy moments that we should be looking at, and what are the wonderful things that are there in front of us?
I think, walking through our Smithsonian affiliated aquarium in San Francisco, one of the most beautiful things I see pretty much on a daily basis is, yes, there is beautiful biodiversity that we have in our tanks. So we hold 1 million gallons in our saltwater tanks and about 24,000 animals. So just the sheer biodiversity of what exists in the San Francisco Bay is beautiful. But what makes it even more special for me is to see little babies in their mother's arms who are fascinated by the biodiversity that they see, in these curved tunnels. And I'm yet to see a child cry in the tunnels. And that to me shows that the ocean is calming. The ocean is beautiful, it's wondrous, it's calming. And it is also nurturing life. And the interdependence of all these species and the interdependence of us as human beings on our oceans is very symbiotic. Hence the title, Ecosynthesis, Our Future.
You're in the UAE at the moment. If you had a magic wand and you were able to do anything, what would you create in this place? What do you think this place would really blossom if they had it in Dubai or Abu Dhabi, in addition to whatever wonderful things that they're doing? What can you contribute to them in terms of creation of something?
I think the greening of the UAE is nothing short of magical. The greening of UAE, the ability to harness frugal natural resources, especially water, is just commendable. The world lives in Dubai. The world lives in the UAE. You see that in your work environment. You see that on the streets. You see that at the World Expo. The world is here. And they are united behind a common cause, which is making the world a better place. The awareness is an area where one could learn from museums, one could learn from expositions, one could learn from conferences and conversations. But in terms of creation of an environmental edifice, it would, where I see a gap and an opportunity, is something that is focused on this ecosynthesis as a concept. Yes, we have the Louvre, yes, we have the Guggenheim, yes, we have other cultural institutions, but I think we need an institution that connects these dots, whether the right side meets the left side, or whether they inspire us collectively to look to the future.
So this is the ecosynthesis that you talk about. Okay. Any final advice you'd like to give to our young people, something that would inspire them and make them more connected with the wonderful messages that you have?
The message for the younger generation would be to harness the talent that we have within, to be inclusive, to be nurturing to ideas, to always remember that alone we are a drop, but together we are an ocean.
We've just been talking to George Jacob, the great George Jacob, who has really put together an amazing array, a plethora of ideas and imagination. For me personally, it's just been a really rewarding experience and just blown my brain and my thoughts and my imagination into something really special. Things that we don't talk about, things that we sort of know but we don't engage with. And he sort of has peeled the onion, certainly for me, and I hope for you, in terms of some things that are really, truly, deeply important for us as far as our futures are concerned, and especially our children's futures. So with that, I thank all of you, and I hope we'll have lots and lots of things to discuss in the future. Thank you very much. Cheers.